So I wanted to have a look at Sunbury, Australia's greatest rock festival, by Peter Evans. So it talks about, this page is the foreword, talking about Death of a Legend, the story of the 4 Sunbury rock festivals. And it starts off kind of mentioning all the music festivals that had been around since the early 60s related to blues and jazz, but then kind of moving on to rock and roll. So California, Monterey and Woodstock were the ones that sort of started in that genre. This page shows the Wallachia Odyssey Festival in 71. I do believe, though, that Arimba was, one of the first really successful ones. They actually filmed that one. It was called Once Around the Sun, directed by Graham Huggett. And then it does mention that there were other little ones, one at Canberra, Pop Festival in during Easter. And then there was one in WA in 1970. So then it talks about the Odyssey Festival at Wallachia on the Australia Day weekend. And a funny thing, the Wallachia one, there was a hippie wedding celebration on stage with their 5-week-old baby lying nearby. And then the Maiponga Festival, that was really popular, and that was in South Australia in 1971. And the highlight of that was that it was the first major overseas group to play, and they were called Black Sabbath. So, that would have been interesting. So here we've got the Pilgrimage Pop at Arimba, that's near me, near the entrance. So then it talks about another one near Mittagong, and that was called the Fairlight Blues and Heavy Music Festival, but that kind of suffered from poor organisation. Then there was another one in 71 on the same site. Then it says a prelude to what was to come at Sunbury was the concert at Rosebud in Melbourne, and that featured Billy Thorpe, Daddy Cool, the La-Di-Dahs and Spectrum. Then we've got, then it sort of talks about some political stuff that was going on, a controversy with radio play royalties, etc. And it does mention that Sunbury wasn't the first Australian rock music festival, but the first to be conceived and run by entertainment industry professionals as opposed to hippies. So then we start with Odessa Promotions. So it talks about, how Sunbury could be said to have been born out of the success of the Wallachia one. What else? John Fowler, he was the man around whom all the Sunbury festivals revolved. And then it sort of talks a lot about his life, etc. These are pictures. So there's lots of, information that you can sort of read along and learn all the history of it. I don't want to sort of go through the whole sort of book because it's too long, and you should really go out and buy it. So these are just some pictures that are in here. It's great that they've kept a lot of this stuff. So the police or the festival organisation is designed so the vast majority of the patrons who come to listen to the music will be allowed to do so with the maximum enjoyment, etc. So there were obviously, police sort of cooperation. Logistics, so a new city is born in a paddock, okay? So there's a lot of information about how it all started, which, again, buy the book and you can sort of see it. Painting fire buckets in the days leading up to the first festival. There's the site plan for Sunbury. There's contractors, there's carpenters erecting the foundations for temporary buildings. And then it's talking about staging the festival, okay? Who the, scaffolders and engineering people were. So they apparently built it over about a week at a cost of nearly $2,000. There's some stage and lighting complete, except for the stage skirt, waiting for the PA to arrive from Jands in Sydney. So, and then they talked to David Mulholland from Jands, talking about who the crew were, the total fee for their 1972 time was $2,500. A degree of hippiness, a degree that kept me from letting go as much as I could have. Not that sex and drugs and rock and roll wasn't important to me, but I remember thinking I couldn't get too stoned because A would lead to B. So the professional side of our involvement with it won out. So that's just various people that were involved. Lots of pictures here. That's a publicity shoot with the Aztecs wearing bigger than big t-shirts. There's Billy Thorpe and all the rest of them. So some really good pictures here. I kind of might focus on the pictures. So the first Sunbury Festival in 72 was a huge adventure into the unknown for everyone involved. For me, it was a huge personal leap as well. At 22, it was my first big outdoor lighting gig and the first time I had employed anyone. I'm trying to find out who that is. There's someone here, David Winslade, talking about the buzz that was involved with it. The gates opening at 4. Control was handed to John Dixon and an Australian music legend was born, etc. So yeah, it just has lots of quotes. There's a great picture, you know, jeans, thongs, big hats, headbands, which is what most people wore at the festival. And then there's all kinds of, you know, quotes from various people. You know, Thorpe's bigger than Ben-Hur on stage. When he walks on and opens his mouth and lets it out, he doesn't tell you something, he commands. Clap your hands, and everyone claps their hands because he scared the Christ out of them. You're going to sing now, and they sing, believe me. So, yeah, lots of fantastic, you know, quotes and just experiences. Madder Lake here, Tame and Shud preparing to go on stage in 1972. Nigel and Lindsay. Photos are from Peter Evans. What else is here? Max Merritt makes a triumphal return to Australia on the Sunbury stage. Loved Ones frontman Jerry Humphreys. And the rhythm section of Friends, Duncan Maguire, Mark Kennedy, roadie Mick Cox at left, leaning on the speaker. So yeah, this one is Max Merritt and his band. So this is Sunbury 72, okay, so just showing you a few pictures here and there. I've seen that one before, actually. So yeah, I think Go Set also advertised how to get there, etc. Yeah, and there were also older people, not just young people at Sunbury. All right, so yeah, they then talk about the profits, you know, 90,000 to 100,000 in the first 3 days of trading. But it was, you know, it was mentioned that it was a success. And Ed Nimervol said, it surprised everybody. It made good everything it promised when we'd become used to the idea that when it came to rock festivals, we'd have to put up with some things. And this time the organisation was right. And the great Billy Thorpe Sunbury saga made sure that Sunbury 72 would become a legend. So I need to find out what happened with that. All right, this one is saxophonists Ian Wallace and Bruce Woodcock. Warren Morgan on stage for the opening night jam. This is the stage night. The Aztecs on stage. That's a great picture. The punters. So then it just obviously talks about lots of punters. Ed Nimervol again quotes about all kinds of things. You know, the people realising they had no control imposed on them. Yeah, self-control. It's not often that such self-control is exercised at huge gatherings. So, yeah, a lot of the music memory of it is obscured. This is Ed talking again. Hard to remember details of particular performances. Most of the early day music is incidental, while the audience sits in a lazy daze or wanders about, etc. Big picture there of the crowds on the hill. Someone wrote, I can't remember eating, I can't remember sleeping, smoking. All of these things must have happened at some stage. I don't even know if I had a tent or I crashed in the car or what I did. All I can remember is going with the buzz. The vibe was just so good. So it was loud, you were deaf, you were crunched in with a whole load of people. A sea of bodies on the hillside in this picture here. I wonder if there's anyone watching who was there and who recognises themselves in these pictures. David Winslade, with quotes. Yeah, just lots of other, quotes. This guy's Benny Zabel. This one is the interior of the St John's Ambulance Hospital in 73. This one is Jackson Creek. Behind the stage provided a place to cool off and listen to the music. So Peter Evans takes a lot of these photos. Opposite top, this one is by Mario Petri. And this one is a helicopter shot from above, and this one is the calm before the storm. So I think the pictures are the highlights, really. Rennie Ellis, B, and Morby. I've got one of his books, actually. He's a great guy. Aftermath. So the Aftermath talks about, I guess, the aftermath. The festival's effects were immediate and widespread. It ushered in the use of legally drawn up contracts for Australian bands. Yeah, so that kind of started to happen. The Aztecs, headliners of the 3XY concert in 72, guaranteed to draw a massive crowd. That's a good picture there. Yeah, so lots of information in this book. It's really good. Compare Jerry Humphreys at the 3XY Free concert in March 72. Lots of different kind of concerts cropping up everywhere. This one is Sunbury 73. Okay, so the first issue of Go Set in 72 had crowed on the front page, Thorpe, Max Kellum at Sunbury. Okay, so it was a financial success. Yeah, the attendees seemed happy. Media reports were positive. No major complaints from the authorities, although some local farmers were still not happy about the festival. So most complaints about, public nudity and windblown rubbish, etc. So what else have we got? More pictures. A jubilant crowd on the hill at Sunbury 1973. Yeah, just loads more. This one, is that Paul Hogan there? Yeah, that's Paul Hogan. John Brewster, Aztec Roadie, Howard Page, John French, Paul Hogan, Ian Fetz, and Peter Hall. So contributors to the success of the 73 festival. Mulga Bill's Bicycle Band. Lots of nudity. This one is Leo De Castro, fronts the group Friends. Good picture. This one is Phil Manning, backing Matt Taylor. There's a cameraman, Laurie Levi, and dancer Benny Zabel. That's Carson drummer Tony Lunt. So just... yeah, people kind of enjoying themselves. Johnny O'Keefe gave Billy Thorpe a close run for King of the Hill at Sunbury, and that was 73. Ken Sparks compared the GTV9 coverage in 73, and there's a ticket. Okay, so more pictures of, crowds having fun. So a wide selection of the crowd at Sunbury, photos by David Barnes. So I'll see if I can zoom in. Yeah, just fun times, it seems. An amazing image of the 73 festival at night. Wow. That's by David Barnes, The Valley of Jackson's Creek. That's cool. Wow, look at that. That's the stage area at night. David Barnes, photographer. So now we're up to Sunbury 74. And again, following 2 successful festivals, there was still local opposition to a third. The go-ahead was reached by February 73. So it was going to be a permanent event on the calendar to support music. And so here's some more shots. This is 74. Again, the Dingoes player Karen Tolhurst. John Boyce, I think it is. Mal Logan. Howard Page in the Jands mixing truck. Glenn Rowan on stage in 74. Gary Hyde on stage in 74. This one is Cush, John Ellis, Bill Harrower, John Santos, Colin Chapman on trumpets. And top right, Richard Clapton. Wow. Okay, young Richard is there. That's 74. Jeff Duff and Cush performing in 74. Full Moon, the Watermelons. Full Moon, the Cookies. Backing singers, the Cookies. Beverly, Margaret and Wendy Cook. They supported various people. So here's just, congratulatory notes that are found at the Victorian Arts Centre, or Performing Arts Collection, I should say, 93. Yeah, so various memorabilia here. Wow, love this one. Daddy Cool. 1974. Wayne Duncan, Ross Hannaford, Gary Young, and Ross Wilson. And that's by Rennie Ellis. Fantastic. I was on the hill with Sleepy, Greg Laurie. When Queen came on, we had already been intrigued by the sight of about 9 Vox AC 30 amps being set up for Brian May. On they strode, pow, they hit it. This was one great band with a totally different powerhouse sound and a hell of a frontman, maybe the best I've ever seen. So yeah, Peter Lane attended Sunbury 74 and was at the stage for Queen's performance. So lots of people talking about it. Pictures. So this is Peter Lane with some great shots. Wow, these are amazing. How cool. The decision to sell beer on site, limited to 2 cans, 30 cents each, as a positive contribution to crowd behaviour and a factor in injuries reductions. So this one is the Sunbury crowd in 74. It's a composite of 4 images, and that's by Peter Evans. That's fantastic. Look at that. Okay, Sunbury 75. Despite the lower attendance, the 74 festival had been considered a great success, drawing letters and telegrams of congratulations from Billy Thorpe, Cush and Skylight. Or is that Cush? No, it must be Cush. So they made the decision to stage a further festival for the Australia Day weekend in 75. More, facts and figures. So Sunbury turned to Mudbury as the rain teemed down. That's John Akers. He was 18 of Frankston and bearing down on Brian Carson of Bond Beach. Give me a shout out if you're watching this, boys. A much diminished crowd approaches the stage through the mud. So lots of information. And then that's Ariel on stage, Sunbury 1975, La-di-das and Jim Keys. Wow, how cool. So this one is publicity material for Deep Purple at Sunbury. And I think the Victorian Arts Centre have got that if anyone wanted to look at it. There's an advertisement for Deep Purple at Sunbury. That's by Andre Dimitri. The only major disturbance at the 75 festival was when bikies turned up and began to cause trouble. A police officer was sent by helicopter to coordinate a turnaround, which was achieved peacefully. Captain Matchbox. Never saw them. I've got a friend that saw them though. She's a bit older than me. Apparently they were great. Deep Purple on stage in 1975. Bass player Glenn Hughes, vocalist David Coverdale. Photo by Richard Rhys-Jones. Some more ephemera, they call it here. I just call it memorabilia. Sunbury 75. Love that picture. That's great. And that's Odessa Promotions. So just press releases. They'll be an up-and-coming big English group, Queen. They will only be seen at Sunbury. Wow, how cool. All right, After the Deluge is near the end here. So rain insurance had been taken out by Odessa Promotions for 1975, and unfortunately, what happened here? There was no rain gauge, something about a rain gauge. It wasn't at the site itself, but at Rupertswood in Sunbury, which had serious implications. So the rain in Sunbury wasn't as heavy as that at the festival site. It didn't rain all the time, so the qualifying criteria for an insurance claim came close but were not met. So there would be little money from the rain insurance, and there was also misleading information from broadcasters in Melbourne. So there were high costs apparently, and too much money had gone down the drain for any hope of recovery. So, it's just got lots of information about that. And then the Legacy talks about the festivals being a great deal, a chance to do something out of the ordinary, bigger than a pub gig, with a bigger stage, bigger audience, better technical facilities. And the festival set benchmarks for what was required for a truly professional performance. So cabaret, the pop star image had been left behind, and in its place was a harder, edgier sound. Australian bands played their own compositions rather than covers, and new music had arrived. So they gave bands a chance to grow and laid the foundations for what was to come. AC/DC, Little River Band, Men at Work, and all those other bands that went on to take Australian music to the world. That was by... who wrote that? Oh, someone wrote it. I think Ed Nimmervoll might have summed that up. Anyway, so this is kind of the end, but I highly recommend getting this because it's got some fantastic memorabilia, facts, figures, interesting stories, and so this one is the 40th anniversary celebrations at the Station Hotel in Melbourne in 2012 with a screening of the Sunbury film that comes from Paul Murphy's collection. That's a flyer actually for one of the many events organised by Paul Murphy. and John Fowler, and the author here at the start of the project. Wow, what a legend for putting this book together. Well done. And this is a lighting effect slide used at Sunbury, made by drizzling lamp lacquer and arrow dyed onto a perspex base and letting it dry. And it was used on the overhead projectors. So Peter Evans supplied this photo. How cool. That's it. I can't recommend this book enough. At the end, it's got all the credits and acknowledgements and all that. So there's lots here. So yeah, it's the work of many people. I'd like to thank John Fowler and his then wife Rosemary, Graham Rhys-Jones, the solicitor to Odessa, stage manager Adrian Anderson, Tim Fisher, Lucy Spencer, Andre Dimitri for access to documents, David Barnes, Peter Lane for the photos, Ian McFarlane, members of the Miles Ago and Sunbury Facebook groups, and publisher David Tenenbaum for his faith in the book, editor Pia, designers Sean, Ellen, and Sunbury enthusiast Paul Murphy. So, and lots of others, of course. But yeah, I highly recommend this. I just love music history, in particular Australian music history. So there it is there. Go out and buy it. You can find it, in most online sort of bookshops or bookstores, whatever. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Cheers.